Hospital report as Pride and Dignity stop the New World Order. Welcome to Hapanwo TV, and good morning to you all. I bet you didn't expect to see me this soon after last night's live stream, did you? Well, just literally minutes after I finished the stream, and it had been going for nearly 3 hours, and I was pretty tired, and I wasn't going to stay up much longer. Something incredible happened. There was a massive explosion of activity in the news. I was thinking of restarting the live stream. I wasn't sure, or maybe doing the video I'm doing now right straight away. However, I was a little bit too tired, so I thought I'd sleep on it and then wake up in the morning and do it then, which is what I'm doing now. It's now Sunday morning the 20th, and I'm going to do this video now about what's been happening. Well, basically, we're talking about the letters now. As you remember from last night's live stream, the Letwin amendment to the deal, to the withdrawal deal, which that was being debated and was going to be voted on Saturday, was passed, which meant that essentially the Surrender Act, the Bain Act, was immediately triggered. This meant the Prime Minister was legally obliged to send a letter to the European Union begging them to give them yet another extension to the Article 50 process. And we were saying like he was compelled by the law, and I was talking about how he was compelled by the law, how he said he'd refused to do it. Well, just shortly after we got off the live stream last night, I just happened to look at the news. I was just having me a cup of tea, and I just looked, and suddenly there's new headlines. Boris Johnson sends letter to the EU requesting extension. So I thought, oh my god, so I clicked on it, and anyway, he has sent letters, but he hasn't just sent one letter, he sent 3. Let's have a look at the 3 letters that have been sent. Right, let's have a look at these letters, these 3 letters that have been sent. Now, the first one is the Prime Minister's official letter to Donald Tusk, President of the European Council, and it goes like this. Dear Mr. President, the UK Parliament has passed the European Union Withdrawal No. 2 Act in 2019. Its provisions now require Her Majesty's Government to seek an extension of the period provided under Article 50, Section 3 of the Treaty on European Union, including as applied by Article 106A of the European Treaty, currently due to expire at 11 p.m. GMT on the 31st of October 2019, and until 11 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time on the 31st of January 2020. That's 3 bloody months. Right, oh god. I'm writing therefore to inform the European Council that the United Kingdom is seeking a further extension to the period provided under Article 50, Section 3 of the Treaty on European Union, including as applied by Article 106A of the Euratom Treaty. The United Kingdom proposes this period should end at 11 p.m. GMT on the 31st of January 2020. If the parties are able to ratify before this date, the government proposes that the period should be terminated early. Yours sincerely, Prime Minister of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. But look, he hasn't signed it. That's very important. And here we have the second letter which he sent, which is actually not from Boris himself. This is actually a CC from the ambassador, Britain's ambassador to the European Union, which he just put on for official reasons. As you see here, it says here it has the header here, the permanent representative ambassador Sir Tim Barrow, UK representative to the EU, Brussels, which is his official title. Same date, 19th of October. It's to Jeppe Tranholm Mikkelsen, Secretary General of the Council of the European Union. Dear Secretary General, as the United Kingdom permanent representative to the European Union, I invite your attention to the following matter. Attached is a letter sent as required by the terms of the European Union Withdrawal No. 2 Act 2019. In terms of the next steps for parliamentary process, Her Majesty's Government will introduce the necessary legislation next week in order to proceed with ratification of the withdrawal agreement. I would be grateful for your acknowledgement of the receipt of this letter. And it's signed there, Sir Tim Barrow, United Kingdom Permanent Representative to the European Union. And now the fun begins. This is a letter from the Prime Minister to President Tusk, and it is signed by the Prime Minister. And it is very, very different. This is the informal letter which he sent accompanying the other 2. And as you see, it has the header here of the Prime Minister's office, 10 Downing Street. Same date, 19th of October 2019. Dear Donald, Dear Donald, how you doing, mate? Yeah, Donald. Dear Donald, it was good to see you again at the European Council this week, where we agreed the historic New Deal to permit the orderly withdrawal of the United Kingdom from the European Union on the 31st of October. I am deeply grateful to you, President Juncker, and all my fellow European leaders for the statesmanship and statecraft which enabled us to achieve this historic milestone. I should also register my appreciation for Michael Barnier and his team for their imagination and diplomacy as we concluded the negotiations. Barnier is the Brexit organising team from the EU. When I spoke in Parliament this morning, I noted the corrosive impact of the long delay in delivering the mandate of the British people from the 2016 referendum. I made clear that while I believe passionately both the UK and the EU will benefit from our decision to withdraw and develop a new relationship, that relationship will be founded on our deep respect and affection for our shared culture, civilization, values and interests. We will remain the EU's closest partner and friend. The deal we approved at last week's European Council is a good deal for the whole of the UK and the whole of the EU. Regrettably, Parliament missed the opportunity to inject momentum into the ratification process for the new withdrawal agreement. That's polite. The UK Permanent Representative will therefore submit the request mandated by the EU Withdrawal Number 2 Act 2019 later today. It is, of course, for the European Council to decide when to consider this request and whether to grant it. In view of the unique circumstances which I regret causing my fellow leaders to devote more of their time and energy to the question I had hoped we had resolved last week, I recognise that you may need to convene a European Council, and it would be helpful to you, and if it would be helpful to you, I would of course be happy to attend the start of any A50 Council so that I could answer properly any question on the position of Her Majesty's Government and progress in the ratification process at that time. Meanwhile, although I would have preferred a different result today, the Government will press ahead with ratification and introduce the necessary legislation early next week. I remain confident that we will complete that process by the 31st of October. Indeed, many of those who voted against the government today have indicated their support for the New Deal and for ratifying it without delay. I know that I can count on your support and that of our fellow leaders to move the deal forward, and I very much hope therefore that on the EU side also the process can be completed to allow the agreement to enter into force as the European Council conclusions mandate it. Now this is the important bit. While it is open to the European Council to accede to the request mandated by Parliament or to offer an alternative extension period, I have made clear since becoming Prime Minister, and made clear to Parliament again today, my view and the Government's position that a further extension would damage the interests of the UK and our EU partner and the relationship between us. We must bring this process to a conclusion so that we can move to the next phase and build our new relationship on the foundations of our long history as neighbours and friends in this continent our peoples share. I'm passionately committed to that endeavour. I'm copying this letter to Presidents Juncker and Sassoli and to the members of the European Council. Yours sincerely, Boris Johnson. It's signed there by the Prime Minister and it's addressed to His Excellency Mr. Donald Tusk. This is absolutely fantastic and an incredible turn of events. It's really, really great that this has happened. As for Boris Johnson himself, now I know that some of you don't trust him. I know people are saying he's a shill, he's an agent, he's really pro-Remain. He's really pro-Remain. He's pretending to be pro-Leave. He's subverting, you see, the Brexit movement. I know, I've heard all that. Now, of course, it's a possibility. There are a number of tests we can apply to that, but so far Boris Johnson has passed those tests. If he slips up, he slips up. But so far, he hasn't. Now, I've discussed this last night on the live stream and in previous videos that I've done on this subject. Now, what Boris has done is kind of what, well, my Scottish viewers will know this. There is a word in Scots for this which really doesn't have an equivalent in regular English. It's called a cacanny. A cacanny is a kind of working to rule about doing what you're supposed to do, but in a way that really undoes what you're supposed to do. See, Boris Johnson did stand up and said he said, well, the law does not compel me to renegotiate with the EU, and he's right. The law compels him to send a letter. Well, he sent a letter. I mean, this is what Maya Tusi was saying last week. He was saying this. This was when the it was all over the news that in the Scottish courts he'd said, so basically his representative, basically one of his I forgot who it was now, had said yes, the Prime Minister will send the letter, because he was the Solicitor General was demanding, he's saying, oh, he's obliged by law to send the letter to renegotiate with the EU, and the guy replies, yes, he's sending the letter. Very carefully worded, wasn't it? And that's what he's done. He sent a letter. He sent an unsigned letter, which if it doesn't have his signature on, it could be from anyone. I could have sent it. So he hasn't signed it. The law doesn't compel him to sign it. He's just sent the letter, and he sent this other informal letter, as you've seen, saying the exact opposite, which he has signed. It's incredible to see him do that. I mean, there's no way Theresa May would ever do this, would she? She would never ever do this. It's like... And I mean, honestly, as I said last night, this is one of the most incredible things I've ever seen in Parliament. It surely is. And then the way that the opposition bullied him, Corbyn, Swinson, Blackford, and all those complete scum, the way they bullied him. Well, they tried to bully him, it didn't work. You know what I mean? I mean, really, what Corbyn was saying, I encourage the Prime Minister to think very carefully over what he's just said and realise that he has to comply with the law. And that's kind of like what you're not, if you have a nasty boss at work, that's kind of the thing they would say, isn't it? It's kind of the thing they would say, and they're definitely trying to coerce him. But of course, I wonder what they're going to think when they see this, when they see what he's done. Because what this is doing is he's actually saying, firstly, he leaves the process open. It's kind of a blame game, really. He's now really exposing the Ramonas in Parliament, including Oliver Letwin. I don't know. Interestingly, if you looked at Oliver Letwin, you've seen a photo of him. He looks a bit like Mark Windows. I think I've thought of another conspiracy theory. Has anyone ever seen these two together in the same room? I'm sure Oliver Letwin is not Mark Windows. It's just a joke. But I find it very, very strange that I find it very encouraging. It's a really clever thing he's done. He's a genius, Boris. He really is. He's a genius of statesmanship. He is now exposed. He's basically kicked the ball directly into their laps, and he's tarnished them with all the blame for this. He's made these Ramonas, Letwin, and all the others look like just a bunch of curmudgeons, a bunch of spoilsports, a bunch of people who were basically just, folding their arms and sticking their tongue out and saying, "Yahoo sucks to you, we're not going to move." And this, of course, is what they are. But he's exposed them. He's shown what they are doing. It's really, really great. So what happens now? I'm not actually sure what's going to happen now, because, of course, the EU are going to have to convene another summit, and they're going to have to discuss what's happened. Now, what exactly is the outcome? What exactly is the outcome of an unsigned letter making a request? Can they actually grant a request for an unsigned letter? I've got a feeling there that especially when as Rees-Mogg was saying, that they're now going to continue working on the deal. There's going to be a meaningful vote at some point next week on the deal. They're going to rush through all the various different votes that they're going to try and rush them through, which have been they're mandated to under the Letwin Amendment. Now, of course, as I said last night, there's going to be a huge amount of obstruction to that. A massive amount of obstruction. The Ramonas are going to do everything they can to slow that process down. But again, they're going to make themselves look more and more exactly what they are. This is what I was saying last night. There's no way out for them. Despite how it looks, despite how frustrating it is that we're in this position where we want Brexit, we can't get it. This is fantastic for us. This is a complete exposure of the New World Order agenda. This is our Trump. Boris is the Britain Trump, as the President Trump said. So we'll have to wait and see what they actually do. I'm not exactly sure what the EU, what the Euro Council can do. Whether they will grant an extension, whether they can. Boris is, like you said, he sent an unsigned letter asking for an extension. He's also sent an informal letter saying he really doesn't want one. Now, this is a pretty unique position. But anyway, let's see what's happening. There's actually now a live feed. There's a live feed here from the BBC, which I'm going to go through. Actually, I mean, this is all breaking news. I'm going I mean, I might have to do more than one video, you never know. But anyway, I'm definitely going to have to do a bloody live stream tomorrow again, aren't I? But anyway, it says, good morning, this is our coverage following Saturday's historic session of Parliament, which saw the PM lose a crunch vote on Brexit. We'll be covering the big political interviews across the Sunday political programmes and the reaction throughout the day. God, this is going to be fun. Anyway, Laura Kunsberg, what does she say? I always like her position, actually, even though she's with the BBC. Parliament's first sitting on Saturday for a decade. Right, it's just a little bit of a coverage from the bottom, from yesterday. Thousands marched in the street, blah blah blah. I think it's just what she's written here is kind of just here we go. It's kind of just the first paragraph is just like a recap on what happened yesterday. As the Prime Minister was forced to ask the EU for a delay to Brexit, something he vowed he would absolutely never do, he sent a letter requesting it grudgingly. Well, it wasn't signed, sending just a photocopy of what was spelt out under law with a personal letter to the rest of the continent, pleading with them not to listen. I mean, this is really weird, where he sends two letters, one saying one thing and one saying the exact opposite. It doesn't actually mention, Laura doesn't actually mention here that it was actually unsigned. I mean, even the BBC is saying in the headlines now, I'll just refresh the page. Where is it? Hang on. BBC, yeah. Boris Johnson sends unsigned letter. It's actually saying unsigned. Oh, blimey, yeah. Oh, more good news. I can't believe I forgot about this with all the excitement of everything else going on. Wales won. Wales won against France. They're in the semi-finals of the Rugby World Cup. Yay, bread of heaven. Anyway, back to the even more important stuff, if there is such a thing. Anyway, so yeah, Boris has sent this unsigned letter, which Laura doesn't say it's unsigned, but it was. And it says, not surprisingly, that has sent his political enemies into furious overdrive. As I write, with the outrage over his policy is already in full swing. I can't wait to see what The Guardian says about this. He has been branded pathetic and shameful. One Labour peer jokingly, surely there should be a fourth letter too, saying, my name is Boris Johnson, I am 5 years old. Oh, very, very, very droll, Mr. Labour peer, whoever you are. You know what they say about, that song, that Red Flag song, and all, all the... and I became a Labour peer, I'll sing the red flag once a year. So, you know, that sort of thing. They're like that, aren't they? That's very, very... That I think is very pathetic and very childish in itself. They basically don't know how to handle this. Anyway, next week, the fight over the deal and delay will continue in the courts and Parliament. Number 10's opponents may try to show his approach to delay to be against the law in courts. Well, there's going to be a court battle, yes. But you can bet, again, Boris has probably gone through this with the Attorney General with a fine-tooth comb. He's dotted every I, he's crossed every T. His political enemies in Parliament will try to block his deal again and again. If you think Parliament has been bruising and bizarre for both sides already, stand by for even more complicated days. But whether the government is determined or simply deluded, it will not be stopped by individual humiliations. Boris Johnson is looking for one big victory to leave the EU at the end of the month. That is certainly harder tonight, but not yet impossible. Saturday's vote gives hope to the politicians and to those members of the public who want to stop Brexit from happening. But remember, MPs have said no to his deal, have not said no to his deal, they've just said not yet. Number 10 will use everything in its not inconsiderable power to push and push. In this moment, rightly or wrongly, Boris Johnson's team believes ongoing tangles in the Parliament lead more of the public to take his side. Bloody hell, that's true, isn't it? If that's a miscalculation, the next few weeks will be an extremely messy way of finding out. Yeah. Anyway, let's have a look at the feed. That was written by Laura Kunsberg last Saturday, and here's a copy of the letters. There's going to be several commentary shows, which I'll watch the highlights of those. I'm not going to sit around watching... I'm not going to sit around watching, Parliament and, politics shows all bloody day. I can't. I've got to do the Mindset podcast. I've got to do a record an interview with Caroline Stevens. I've got all kinds of things I've got to do. I'm curious to see what she says about this, actually. Right, so let's go to part number 2. That's the third page. It's been going for 3 pages already. It's probably going to go for about 8 pages again. Blah de blah. How can Article 50 be extended? Well, again, it's the same way it was last time. There's nothing stopping the EU actually granting an extension, other than whether the fact that it's an unsigned letter is actually an issue. I don't know. It's possible that like McDonnell, his Labour's John McDonnell suggests Boris Johnson may well be in contempt of Parliament or the courts themselves because he's clearly trying to undermine the first letter, and by not signing the letter. He adds, sending 2 letters, it flies in the face of what both Parliament and the courts have decided. In September, MPs passed the Benn Act, a law designed to stop Mr Johnson pushing through a no deal on October the 31st, which forces him to ask for a delay. And he's passed the deal until he's passed the deal or got MPs to approve a no deal by yesterday. Thing is, like, the Benn Act itself is a dirty trick, and Boris Johnson has responded with what I wouldn't use the word dirty, but it's with a crafty piece of trickery himself. He's fighting fire with fire. As I explained last night, this whole stop no deal at all costs. No, well, here's a deal then. We don't want it. It's all about shutting all the doors except cancel Brexit. That's the whole point. They want to stop Brexit without actually saying so. They want to say, well, look, we don't want a deal, but all these deals are no good, so we're going to have to cancel Brexit. I'm terribly sorry. Nigel Farage says Saturday was an absolute flop. Brexit leader Nigel Farage tells Sky's Sophie Ridge that the so-called Super Saturday turned out to be an absolute flop. It certainly was that. He says that the public are upset with politicians over Brexit and want real political reform. But I still don't understand why Farage is calling for an extension and a general election. I'm kind of wondering if it's just because he wants to get MPs, he wants to get into Parliament. Why? I mean, the thing is, many people have said Brexit is such a single-issue party. It's called the Brexit Party. That really, in a post-Brexit world, it will have no role, and therefore, of course, there won't be any point. However, I think there will be a role for Brexiteers in the post-Brexit world, because there's going to be, when the general election happens, you can bet there'll be some kind of coalition. This is in a post-Brexit general election. There'll be some kind of coalition. As part of its manifesto, will be reapplying for EU membership, which Britain can do. That's the thing; it can do that. So why not? I don't know why. I don't understand why so there will be a role for the Brexit Party in UKIP. However, to prevent that from happening. However, I still don't understand why he's doing this. I still don't understand why. He's saying, oh, no, Boris shouldn't do this. Boris should go for an extension. Why? I've listened to his explanations. They don't make much sense, quite frankly. I'll have to have a listen again. The PM's deal is not Brexit. Oh, yeah, the deal. I mean, I'm a WTO man. I don't think the deal is the best. I think it'd be better to go WTO. But Boris has tried to negotiate a deal. He's succeeded in negotiating a deal. Which does provide some kind of Brexit. However, I'm sure he's got something up his sleeve there. But to apply for an extension instead of that deal, I don't understand that anyway. It says here, Farage does not rule out a Brexit party pact with the Tories. Mr Farage does not rule out an electoral pact with the Conservatives, saying that if the PM argued for a harder Brexit, it could happen. Well, he has argued. The PM has said no deal on the 31st if necessary. And Farage says this: I just hope we get the chance to have a general election. We're going to have a general election one way or another in the next few months. What's his problem? And I mean, the thing is, both Boris and Nigel know that they're going to have a pact with the Tories. They'll have to. This is this is Sophie Ridge here. Boris is behaving like a spoilt brat, says. This is not her talking, sorry. Says John McDonnell after PM has sent additional letters to you undermining his request. I'll have to watch those later, but it's on the Sunday Politics show on Sky. I'll watch that later. I might have to end up doing another video today, you never know. It's certainly going to be a live stream tomorrow. And again, he says, this is a rotten deal. This is Farage talking. If Boris Johnson had presented that 6 months ago to the House of Commons, the ERG, that's the European Research Group, that's the Brexiteer talks in the Tories, would have voted against it. McDonnell says, we'll win a general election. He must be joking. McDonnell says the public faces a fundamental choice between Labour and a Boris Johnson government that undermines workers, consumers, environmental rights. No, that's what they've done. Everything Labour are accusing the others of, they do themselves. He reckons they'll win the general election. I bloody doubt it. Let's see. Let Win, this is Mark Windows lookalike here, says he's going to support the PM's deal. And he did say that. He actually said, funny enough, Oliver Letwin himself is taking the most moderate line in this. Even though he put the bloody amendment. Why he put his amendment through. Ex-Brexit Secretary David Davis tells Sky Sophie Ridge that Boris Johnson had no choice to send the letter as that was the law. And he did in this sort of cacanny way, as I was saying. But he adds, Parliament can instruct you to do something. They can't instruct you to change your mind. Letman says he's not going to put any new amendments through. David Davis says the deal will get through next week. I think it will. There may be attempts to tack delays into it, or attempts to tie his hands at the next stage. So David Davis is saying basically the whole amendment is intended, like I said, to obstruct the process. Letman's going to vote for the deal, yeah. Letman also says the EU will probably grant an extension to avoid no deal. Oh dear. Well, I bloody hope not. Anyway, here's page 1 now. This is the latest at the time of recording. There'll be much more news by the time you're watching this, by the time I've edited and uploaded this. Letwin said, I had friendly conversations with the PM. He's a perfectly charming man. Yeah. Starmer, oh god, is Keir Starmer, shadow Brexit secretary, which is shadow Brexit secretary is a contradiction in terms, because there is no bloody Brexit secretary. The shadow Brexit secretary, that is Labour's Keir Starmer, their position, the opposition position on Brexit is very simple. The shadow Brexit team on the opposition is just saying one thing: just stop it, revoke Article 50. That's it. Easiest job in the world, isn't it? Shadow Brexit Secretary Sir Keir Starmer tells BBC's Andrew Marr the PM is being childlike and will bear personal responsibility if the UK crashes out. That word again, crashes out of the EU without a deal because of his letters. Well, I don't think that's going to put Boris off very much. He's always accepted personal responsibility for this sort of thing. When people say crashing out with no deal, what they mean is that the World Trade Organization rules will apply to Brexit. He added things will very probably end up in court. The EU ambassadors spent 15 minutes on Brexit. Alright, the EU 27 ambassadors met for around 15 minutes in Brussels this morning. They continued the legal process of ratifying the Brexit deal on the EU side. They received a short update from the EU chief negotiator, that's Barnier. Leaving the meeting, Mr Barnier said the European Council President Donald Tusk will consult with EU leaders about a potential extension to the Article 50 process. He told diplomats the passage of the Letwin Amendment did not mean that the deal has been rejected. Right. Yeah, oh dear. Brexit mistakes, this is from Sky News. We discussed EU issues before ours. Asked about what mistakes the UK made in the Brexit negotiation process, former Brexit Secretary David Davis, who served under Theresa May, said, we talked about the EU's issues before talking about ours. We conceded too much at every turn. We were not tough enough. We were simply not tough enough, meaning Theresa May was not tough enough, yeah. He said the EU did not believe that Mrs May meant it when she said no deal is better than a bad deal. Well, she didn't mean it, did she? In fact, well, the thing is, he said, this is all nonsense. We conceded too much at every turn. We were not tough enough. No, it was deliberate sabotage. That Theresa May was put in there. She was put in there to stop Brexit. She's pretending to make it happen. Labour will back an amendment next week calling for a referendum on the PM's Brexit deal. Oh God, of course they will. Keir Starmer says, a strong case for the next Labour leader to be a woman. Right, so that's all white man out of the door then, isn't it? Yeah. Sir Keir said he's openly inviting the DUP, the Democratic Unionist Party, to talk to Labour about backing a second Brexit referendum. If you want to work with us on this to improve the situation, our door is open. Oh man. This is their plan, you see. I think this is their plan, is to have a second referendum with the option of revoking Article 50, which they will make sure happens. If we get a second referendum, it's all over. But as I was saying last night, it's that to have that to happen would need a significant change of government. It'll have to be in their manifesto, and there'd have to be a general election. It can't just be voted into Parliament right now. Gove said, yes, I can guarantee Brexit on the 31st of October. All right. We have the government equivalent of my R2C here. He said to Sky's Sophie Ridge he can guarantee the UK is going to leave the EU on the 31st of October. That's our determined policy. Challenged on why the PM has sent a letter to the EU requesting that Brexit be postponed, Mr Gove said that letter was sent because Parliament requested it to be sent. As David Davis pointed out, Parliament can't change the Prime Minister's mind, and Parliament can't change the government's policy or determination. All right, let's hope he stands by that. Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab tells the BBC's Andrew Marr that viewers will be astonished by Labour's backing of an amendment for a second referendum on Brexit. Oh man, he describes the pledge as a breach of faith with voters. Duh! I see. Laura Kunsberg was saying that can't happen without a general election. It's not realistic to just simply. You can't just introduce a second referendum now. I mean, if they did, if there is a way of doing it, God help us. Oh man, I mean, what'll happen then is, I mean, if they try and get it all done before a general election, that's going to cancel Brexit. You're going to have a general election, get a government in, will do Brexit, and then restart Article 50, I suppose. Oh. Raab said smart legislation will ensure high standards. Oh dear, where were we now? Labour MPs question Raab's smart legislation pledge. I don't know what that means. Gove says we're upping no-deal preparations today. Michael Gove, the Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster. Is that what he's called as well? Tells Sky News that the most important thing that all of us can do now is focus on getting the legislation through. As a result of yesterday's vote, the risk of leaving without a deal has grown. Well, good. Good. I mean, the thing is, it'll backfire. If the EU turn down an extension, then the whole thing will backfire, because then there'll be WTO on Halloween, and that'll be the end of it. There'll be nothing. No one can stop that then. So the Ramonas are taking a big risk too. They're banking on the EU granting a deal. I don't think they expected Boris actually to play this game he's playing. I think he's outmaneuvered them yet again, and it's going to backfire. This is why they're so angry. Gove continues, now as a result of that vote we can't guarantee that any extension will be granted. Mr Gove says that he will later today be chairing a cabinet committee meeting to what? Hang on, it's gone. There's more news again. Where is he? A cabinet committee meeting to ensure the government's preparations for a no-deal Brexit are accelerated. We're triggering Operation Yellowhammer to ensure that if no extension is granted, then we've done everything possible to leave without a deal. Yeah, Yellowhammer. That's interesting. They use these words like there was Operation Vulture before, wasn't there? Now Operation Yellowhammer. I think it may be a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek kind of taking the piss out of Operation Vulture, because Yellowhammer, of course, is a bird. It's a songbird. It's a very sweet and nice songbird, as opposed to a vulture, which is a carrion-eating sharp-beaked horrible bird. You know. I think they're taking the Mickey a bit. But of course, yeah, I'm ready for a no-deal Brexit. I'm ready to crash out without a deal. I've got my zombie-killing gun. I've got my emergency rations. I've got my combat boots and my DPMs to put on. You know, I'll be like, it'll be like Dawn of the Dead. You know, I'm all ready for that. Gove, Parliament can get the Brexit deal through. Michael Gove tells Sky News that he believes the government has the numbers to get Boris Johnson's deal through. That's possibly true, actually. Parliament can get the legislation through by the 31st of October, and if Parliament approves the legislation, the letter requesting the delay is withdrawn. Well, you see, the thing is, yeah, I mean, this is now with the Letwin Amendment. There's going to be all kinds of votes on all the details. Then, when there's a meaningful vote on the deal itself, if that passes, then we get through. We leave on Halloween with the deal. Otherwise, we leave with no deal on the 31st. Raab says. Raab says the EU is fed up with Brexit. I bloody bet they are. You see, the EU is a constituency part of the New World Order agenda. Their priorities is not keeping Britain in the EU. Their priority is to hold the EU together, so it remains as part of this agenda, this Stalinist two-stage model to dictatorial world government. Now, do you think they're willing to sacrifice that just to keep our troublesome little black sheep of an island within the pen. Of course they're not. They will fall back to a secondary position and sacrifice Britain for the good of the whole agenda. Of course they will do that. I said they would do that back in March. I was surprised they didn't, actually. I'm disappointed. So I think this is a bet. If they don't do it now, they ain't going to do it ever. And for some reason, they are keeping Britain in. Maybe it's occult reasons, like I was talking about the Roman Empire and about how their desperation of keeping Britannia, their province, within the Roman Empire. 2,000 years ago, they did this. For example, building Hadrian's Wall, which is one of the engineering wonders of the world, an 83-mile wall across the north of England. They did that in order to protect Britain. There was an enormous amount of effort went into protecting Britannia, and it could be because it is the heart chakra of the world, and this is why you get all the standing stones here. This is why you get the crop circles and things here. It could be something to do with that. It could be that's why they're so desperate to hold on to Britain. We'll soon find out. But anyway, he says here the EU is fed up with Brexit. Though he stopped short of predicting that its members will deny the UK delay, people at home will be thinking you've got the deal, adding that the public may not understand why there is still uncertainty. No shit. We do understand why there's this so-called uncertainty. I think people realise that this is obstruction. This is a very, very crafty and nasty and disreputable way of just trying to stop the process altogether. Because the British elite and the EU elite are obviously clashing over this. Raab adds, the only question is, why aren't we getting on with it? Yeah. Chuka Umunna, oh God. He's now a Lib Dem. Chuka Umunna is bloody, I can't stand him. He was originally Labour, he then moved to the CUC, the independent group, and he left them and he's moved to the Lib Dems now. Do you think he'll go full circle and join the Tories? Chuka Umunna says, Dominic Raab saying we should trust the Tories to increase employment predictions post-Brexit is like a bunch of arsonists asking us to trust them to put out a fire. Oh, very funny. Very funny, Chuka. You really are so hilariously funny. Gove said, I've bet money on Brexit, but that's between me and the Health Secretary. Asked by Sophie Ridge if you bet money on the UK leaving the EU by the 31st of October, Michael Gove said, yes, I have. How much? He says, that's between me and the Health Secretary. Does that mean, some commentators suggested that the Health Secretary Matt Hancock has bet against Brexit happening by Halloween? I've got to get down to Ladbrokes and put my own bet on, I think. How newspapers are reporting Saturday's events. Now, this is interesting because I'm always interested in how Brexit looks to other nations, like to non-British nations within the EU, other member states as they call them. Die Zeit, that's the German newspaper Record, says the fight over Brexit will continue for even longer. Oh God. Italy's Corriere della Sera believes the unprecedented game of two letters seriously embarrasses the EU. Handelsblad, that's a NRC Handelsblad, that's a Dutch newspaper, says Saturday cannot be viewed as a failure for Johnson. Nice one, guys, you see. And De Volkskrant, that's a very good Dutch newspaper actually, agrees, saying that the amendment vote could prove to be a Pyrrhic victory. Yes. See, the continent is on our side in this. Oh, we're going on a minute. Let's Oh, it's just flicked down again. Here we go. Francis Le Figaro says, British MPs have added an incredible episode to an already lengthy Brexit series by deciding not to decide anything. Spain's El Mundo, meanwhile, sees Saturday's vote as a blow of enormous scale to Mr Johnson. I mean, the exception of El Mundo, all the other papers are very much... They understand this better than our press does, our Ramona press does. Stephen Crabb says... That's an MP. He says, public's patience tested to an unacceptable extent over Brexit. The public is sick and tired of MPs going round in circles over Brexit. Yeah. And here's another copy of Brexit of the letter. Oh, right. So at 10:30, it's now. This was the last update, 10:37 p.m. I will check this again before I end the recording, but let's just go and see what other people are saying about this. Now, where are we now? Oh, I've just got a PM from somebody. All right, I'll read that later. It's David Curtin. Now, David Curtin is he's actually one of the most senior figures in UKIP. He's a member of the London Assembly, and he says here, this is his he's one of the most active UKIP members on Twitter, which is why I follow him. He says here, it's a good thing that Boris's treaty was not passed yesterday. There is still a possibility of a clean break Brexit on the 31st of October. A clean break Brexit. Even if that doesn't happen, it's better to have an extension, an election, and full Brexit than be locked into a Brexit in name only treaty. Right. So he's taking literally kind of the same position as Farage. He's saying that the deal is really bad, therefore we should have an election and an extension rather, and either the ideal, he says, is a clean break Brexit, that is a WTO on Halloween, but if that doesn't happen, it's better to have an extension, an election, and a full Brexit. Right, okay. So that's David Curtin. Now George Monbiot. I'll come to George Monbiot later. Let's go to Gerard Batten first. What's he been saying? Right. Has he got any pinned ones? No, he doesn't. Here we go. This is the 35 minutes ago. It's now 10:41. This is 35 minutes ago, just to give you a timestamp on this, because this is not a live stream, of course. Gerard Batten says that this is the great lie perpetrated by Remain from the day after the referendum, that we can only leave with a deal. The opposite is true. Making leaving dependent on a deal means leaving will never happen. We will never leave the EU while we are governed by traitors. Precisely. Well, the thing about it is that the traitors are in government, but unfortunately it seems like the non-traitors are getting the better of them at the moment, which is very, very good. And he also says here he's actually retweeted Brexit warrior Steve. Amber Rudd confirms the sole purpose of the Letwin Amendment is to ensure that we can only leave with a deal. Leavers must remember that Remain saboteurs have a majority in the House of Commons. Yes, they are the ones who blocked a WTO Brexit. They are the true deniers of democracy. Precisely. The EU is most likely to... Batten also says the EU is most likely to agree to an Article 50 extension. Why would they? They don't want us to leave. Well, I'm not sure about that, as I've just explained. As I said in 2014, if Leave won a referendum, the result would be delayed, impeded, and eventually overturned. Yeah, I mean, I said this back in 2016 myself, in 2015. Yeah. Gerard says here, this is 1 hour ago, our traitorous parliament has humiliated the PM and betrayed Britain. Boris presents a not really leaving deal. They even reject that. He's forced to forward their surrender letter to the masters in Brussels. This is the lowest point in our history. Yes, although I think Gerard Batten's tone here is a little bit dismal. I think it's not. It's actually the way Boris has done it could be very productive. But anyway, that's from Gerard Batten, who I've always quite liked. He made a big mistake, huge tactical error by bringing Sargon of Akkad and Paul Joseph Watson into the fold, and letting them. They joined the party, but then he let them become candidates, which was a huge mistake. It basically led to the split in UKIP, which resulted in the Brexit party. However, I think Barrett Batten, he doesn't have the charisma of Nigel Farage, but he's a sensible, practical, pragmatic man who I think he talks a lot of sense, and I like that in a politician. So let's have a look at the headlines. Let's look at the headlines here. Right, we have here the where is it? The Daily Telegraph's headlines is here we go. This is the front page of the Sunday Telegraph. Johnson refuses to sign Brexit delay letter. Hang on, let me just see if I can. Oh, hang on. I'll just have to save this, and then I'll just save it, and then I won't. I'm tempted to just show you it and do like an audio read through, but I know I'll just magnify it because I can't read it properly there. Where is it? Here we go. Right, I'll just magnify it in picture viewer. Boris Johnson refuses to sign Brexit delay letter. This is not for me, says PM as he hands photocopy of MP's request. He writes separately to EU leaders asking them to stick to 31st. The gambit follows PM's decision to thwart vote on his withdrawal. Yay. Yes. That's the headlines from the Telegraph. Let's see if we can find any more headlines, actually. Let's have a look. Let's put Boris Brexit in. It's just this is stuff we've seen before. I think we covered the basic news. That is the interviews. Let's just put in headlines, and let's see what's here. The Observer, Sunday Express. Why won't they just let us leave? I'll go to image here. Why won't they just let us leave? And Daily Express is quite positive. Against all odds, Boris closes in on Brexit deal. That's more like it, isn't it? Yeah. There's the Telegraph and Sunday Express. Why won't they just let us leave? Yeah. Daily Mail. The House of Fools. The Guard. This is the Sun. The Guardian. The Sun. Just do it. Yes. Right. This is it. Yeah. I wonder what. I don't think that's today's headline. Sorry. Let's have a look at the Guardian. Let's have a bit of fun. I'm going to do a hate reading of the Guardian now. And see what they say. I've got to go to the Guardian, haven't I? Yeah. Johnson sends unsigned letter asking for delay and second arguing against it. All right, let's have a look at this. I'll just go through the Guardian now. I'll come back to the other papers in a minute. I've just found another database of headlines. PM sends to Donald Tusk a photocopy of the request required by the Bed Act with a conflicting view in a second letter. I don't think any statesman has done this before. It's really great. This is new territory here. And it just says what he does here. It just gives a list of what's happening. Of what's the late night letters. Okay, the move sparked concerns the Prime Minister could face fresh court action. One former Tory cabinet minister said, "This is clearly against the spirit of the Benn Act." Well, of course it is. It's meant to be. Of course it's against the spirit of the Benn Act. You bunch of bullies. You poked the bear with a stick and now the bear is scratching your bloody face apart. Serve you right. It's not consistent with the assurances that were given by Downing Street to the Scottish courts about applying for an extension. Well, no, you see, as Maya Tusi explained, it was a very, very interesting what he actually said. Now, this was reported wrongly by the media that Boris had said he would capitulate completely, isn't it? It didn't, but he's not. The actual wording was very different. I mean, I freaked out over that, I admit it. I thought, oh god, Boris has caved in, he's sold out. But it wasn't like that at all, and we've just seen that now. It will also put the government law officers in a very uncomfortable position. Well, good. Let them be in uncomfortable positions, yes. The late night letters followed another bruising day in the Commons for Johnson, where MPs voted by 322-306 to withhold, approve of the EU exit, etc. Yeah, forcing him to write to Brussels by 11 p.m. on Saturday to request an extension until the 31st of January 2020. Despite the Prime Minister's insistence that we would not negotiate a further extension on UK membership of the EU, he confirmed on Saturday evening that he had sought such a prolongation. No, he didn't. Shortly after 10 p.m. London time, Tusk tweeted, "The extension request has arrived. I will now start consulting EU leaders on how to react." Yeah. An EU source said that Tusk's deliberation with the European leaders may take a few days. After the extension request was sent, Jeremy Corbyn accused Johnson of petulant posturing and bluster, and his damaging deal was defeated today. Ugh. Officials in Brussels said there was little doubt that an extension request would be granted. Oh god, yeah, that would be a shame actually if that happens. But this is the Guardian talking. You can't trust them. Despite the Prime Minister's attempt to throw doubt on such a move, this is the remember this same media outlet, the Guardian, the BBC, all the sort of liberal press, was saying last week that there was very little chance of any deal, that the EU accepting Johnson's deal, and they accepted it. Here we go. A decision on the terms could be taken later in October to allow for events to unfold in London. A summit could be held as late as the 29th of October. Well, that's just 2 days beforehand. Ambassadors for the EU27 will, they've admit that, I've done that, they've already had a meeting. Anyway, there's no Parliament today. Speaking in the Commons earlier, that's yesterday, Johnson told MPs he did not believe the EU would be minded to offer a further extension, and he would not negotiate one. Oh well, I hope they don't. But senior EU officials said it was clear during the discussions among the leaders at the summit on Thursday that they would grant an extension. Even the French President Emmanuel Macron in the room didn't suggest otherwise. Well, yes, that was before they knew he was going to send this unsigned letter, plus the informal letter advising against it, which is just, it's something that is so unlike things that Prime Ministers are supposed to do. This was on Thursday, during the summit on Thursday, which I covered on the live stream then. I covered it on the live stream on Friday. This is different. These are the Guardian twisting facts again. And again, this is just quoting Norbert Röttgen, who is a senior member of the German Chancellor's office. He had no doubt an extension will be granted. Yeah, but things have changed now. Anyway, where are we? I'm not going to read any more. This is a very long article, and I'm not going to go walk any more on it. But anyway, let's have a look at that's just the Guardian doing their usual. Anyway, this is the. Let's just have a look through some more. I found another database of today's headlines. These are the most up-to-date ones, which are actually, but from the Guardian actually. Anyway, here we go. The Observer says no delays, vows Johnson after humiliating Commons defeat. Humiliated, says the Mirror. Oh. The PM forced to beg EU for a delay. New doubts he will get his deal. No new doubts he will get his deal approved. Again, that's a. Well, I don't think he was humiliated. I think it was a chance they would try to humiliate him, and they failed. The Sunday Times. Boris fights Brexit wreckers with 3 defiant letters to the EU. That's a bit different from the Mirror, isn't it? I've already gone into the Sunday Telegraph, the Daily Mail, the House of Fools. Today, Britain could have begun to heal after the end of our Brexit purgatory. Instead, posturing MPs subjected us to yet more agonising delay. It's got pictures of Letwin, Corbyn, Burkow, and I forgot what's his name. Sunday Express. Why won't they let us leave? Outrage as Parliament votes to obstruct Boris's breakthrough Brexit deal. Defiant PM asks EU to send MPs a message and refuse any further delays. Yeah. So that's today's headlines in the papers. Let's just go back now to the and this is just another. This is an article here. I won't read that. That's just the article with the letters detailed in. I've already been through Laura Kunsberg analysis. Now let's have a look at what's happened since then. Right, this is the latest. There's been another update here. This is 10:50. It's now 10:52. So this is just 2 minutes old. This update here. What did we learn from Sunday's shows? Here's a quick recap following the Sunday morning politics programme. Michael Gove insists UK will leave on Halloween. John McDonnell said the PM. Okay, this is just going over what I've said before. Anyway, I'll just read the summary at the BBC. Boris Johnson has sent a letter to the EU asking for Brexit delay, but has not signed it. He also sent a second letter, which he has signed, saying a delay would be a mistake. Opposition MPs have warned the PM could find himself in court over the move. I don't think that will put him off. The PM is required by law to ask for an Brexit extension beyond the current 31st of October deadline. Cabinet Minister Michael Gove insists the UK will leave the EU by the 31st of October. The letters follow Saturday's government defeat in a crunch Brexit vote. That's the BBC's summary. The headlines at the moment read, here we go, the PM is, right, UK will not leave EU this month, ministers insist. Which ministers? Ministers insist the UK will not leave, hang on, what's going on? UK will leave EU this month, ministers insist. Sorry, I misread that. Ministers insist the UK will leave the EU by the 31st of October despite the letter. Right. There's two ways this could happen, as I said. Either we get the WTO on the 31st, if the EU turn us down, or we find some other way of doing it, the EU turn down an extension, or we get the deal through somehow in the 2 weeks less than 2 weeks now remaining. And this is just going over what has been said before. He's just talking basically about Gove and Raab saying that. Let's just go over in Raab's words, saying that the UK will leave the EU this month. Okay, so that basically is the situation at the time, 5 to 11 a.m. on Sunday the 20th of October 2019. This is an amazing period of history to live through. We are not only seeing history being made, we are making history right now. This is incredible and unprecedented of events. This is better than anything I hoped for. It really is. It is totally different from what I hoped for. Oh, so I just remembered I've got to. I'll cover that in a future video. It's alright, there's something else on my notes that I haven't covered, but I'll cover it in a future video, because when I say future video, I mean there'll be another video very soon, I'm sure, because things are moving very fast right now. I've got a lot to do today. I've got to do a recording with Caroline Stevens. I've got to do the Mindset podcast. So I've got a lot to do in terms of Panwo Radio and the Mindset. But I will keep an eye on things as they are going on. By the time you watch this, there'll probably be an update. But I will do another video very soon. There'll probably be a live stream tomorrow night. Rest assured, anything that happens, you will hear about it first, live and exclusive on Panwo TV. So thank you, all of you, for watching. Hope you have a lovely Sunday. I'll see you again very soon, maybe before this day is out. Hospital Porters, pride and dignity. Stop the New World Order.